Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion to approve, I presume. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion, changes, additions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion passes, minutes are approved. Item 3 is discuss the Hudson Area Lacrosse Association's request for field use. And, Tom, do you want to start off with that, or do you want Jeff to start?
Mr. Chairman, before you get into that, I'd like to make a correction on the issue sheet compared to the board minutes from the February 1st meeting.
Okay.
Under North Hudson Park, not large enough, there's a bullet point. The board recommended the boosters consider allowing the HLL to play 4 games at home. That was not the motion.
All right.
So I just want to make sure that this body has not recommended that approval,
Okay.
if you look at the minutes.
Okay. Thank you, Randy. Tom, you want to give us an update on our summary of what's going on?
After the last meeting, I was requested to just try to look into other areas that the city parks may have some room to put a field with the dimensions of 180 by 330 feet. I looked at Burton Field, which would have enough room, although we are considering changing that park. The other area that I looked at was the area on top of Prospect Park, the old hospital site. And the area east and west would accommodate the 180 feet fairly easy. Although the north and south measurement, if we went as far south as we could, then going north, we get about 270 feet, and then there's like a park road through there. So if that road was relocated, that would be a possibility. I don't think Hudson Meadows, I didn't go out there. I don't know if that would be allowed in the Hudson Meadows area. Then after discussion, there was another location I haven't measured yet, but if I could show, this is White Camp Park. If I could show you this, I don't know if the camera could come on. This area up on, this is where the water tower is. This is the original concept plan, but up here, this is where the water tower is. There's a flat area up in this area. I did not get up there with all the snow this year, or this last week, but that's a possibility up in that area. It would just be dependent on if that would be suitable for the use of White Camp Park. But definitely we have parking, and it'd be a nice area up there potentially. So that's just the possibilities that I came up with. So Prospect Park is possible with the moving of the road, but then, is there long-range plans, if that would interfere with some long-range plans? But just by talking with the lacrosse spokesperson, Mr. Sweeney, and his wife, right?
We're unmarried.
Okay.
For the record, we're not.
Okay, sorry. That it's pretty costly to develop a field, as the boosters know. So, to put that much money into an area, if we have to make sure, the park board has to really make sure that once we are committed to that, because it's a large investment for whoever does these fields. So that's what I came up with so far, so we could certainly open it up for discussion.
Tom, what, is it flat up there? Where are you? Are you talking up here?
We have to stay on this side of the black line. This is within this side, right here. This shelter right here is actually the water tower. This is a concept plan from, this isn't the way it all worked out, but this is the water tower right up in this area. And then this is a sliding hill right here. So this area right inside this black line is fairly flat up in that area.
So there's no trees, no parking lot?
No. It's just a grassy area up in that area. Weeds mostly.
Any other questions for Tom at this time?
That meets the specs, the length, this 180, 30.
I haven't been up there. I would have think that it would be, that's something we have to do, and it'd be nice if there's a little less snow, but, that was the same thing come up at the 11th hour here to maybe consider that spot.
What's been used up there before? Anything?
There's a siren for the warning siren, there's a water tower, and, just weeds up there, or, just high grass at this time. But I see the concept plan is to have, trails and things through there, so I mean, if we were to do it up there, there'd be some changes in the overall.
A lot cheaper than moving a road, and a lot cheaper than ruining an existing field already designated for youth football. Right?
Yeah.
I say we do that.
Well, you're not sure if it's gonna work. It's on,
At this point, I'd like to go up and measure, I just didn't have time prior to the meeting, so.
so that might be a 2012 option. It sounds like 2011, there was maybe something in place with the original proposal, or are you thinking it would work for 2011?
I don't, then it depends on, we're just kind of trying to find a location for the lacrosse association. At that point, according to the figures that you gave me the other day, it's very, very expensive to develop a field. I don't know if the lacrosse people would consider that or not. I don't know if it would be, certainly not in our budget to develop a field like that, so.
Jeff, you want to come up and?
Sure. I didn't have a chance to hook up with Steve or Candace, since your meeting, but I did see the figure, the estimate of $200,000 to get the field done. That's just pretty much out of touch for us. So I think there's some possibilities that we could do some interim things. Perhaps I know it's already grassed and already seeded. Maybe there's some opportunity there. I don't know exactly what the levelness of that area is, but I think these are all reasonable options that I think just need to be explored more and detailed out. It'd be nice if the snow went away so we could walk around and see exactly what those are. But it definitely is a 2012 or beyond option, not for this season.
And just for the record, your group and the boosters have met, and you've come to an agreement for use of those fields for this year. Is that correct?
Well, to put a fine point on it, I know that the boosters met and they came up with a list of rules, I guess you would say, of allowing us to use that field from their perspective. So we haven't had a chance to sit down face to face. So this is really the first time we've sat down and been in the same room to kind of go through. There are a couple items that, I'd like to talk about and discuss. I don't know if you want to talk about them here, but a couple of the items that I have highlighted on here is in the first section there, it says 4 varsity level games. I'd like that to be amended to be anywhere from 5 to 7, as we really have not locked in totally on what our schedule is going to be. We talked about anywhere from 5 to 7 home games. We knew that 4 of them were going to be during the month of May, but there are also 2 other games that may fill in some of the blanks in the month of May, or maybe towards the end of April. So I'd like to see that amended. So I'll just kind of list them out here. Any of the items from number 1 to number 9 didn't really have any questions or comments or concerns on that. Number 10, it says liability insurance for the field and players. We need to really understand what is meant by for the field. I know that the Hudson lacrosse is insured under the U.S. Lacrosse Association, and that's for players, but I'd just like to make sure we understand exactly what does field mean from their perspective versus what is covered under the U.S. Lacrosse. We know that if any of our players get hurt on any field, that is covered, so that's 100% covered.
We probably just want to see a copy of the policy.
Yep, sure.
Or have that
You
on
guys
file.
too, right?
Yes.
Yep. Then number 11, which is games are not to be played during rain. That is in conflict with the MBSLA rules of the game, which basically say unless there's, just like for football or any other game, unless there's lightning, the games would continue as scheduled. So that we'll have to dig into more, both with the MBSLA and then with these gentlemen over here, and kind of come to some agreement on that. additionally, if you play out any scenario that might possibly happen, the games just don't get canceled, they get rescheduled. So I don't know if these games would end up getting rescheduled maybe, in May, or it may be June, or whatever the case may be. So there's the reschedule part that I want to make sure we have flexibility on. And then not conforming to any of these conditions, and I just listed out a couple items that are potential areas of concerns, but then the immediate termination of this agreement. So that one is pretty harsh, pretty hard to do, and I think we're living to the spirit of it with, the damage deposit, and then all the other rules that are listed in there. The one that I get worried about is the games played during rain. So otherwise, it was definitely agreeable.
Sounds like you guys have a framework that you're working on, though.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
we'll leave that between you two groups to work that out. But as far as White Camp Field, for example, or White Camp Park, and potentially developing a field there,
Yep.
what can we expect from you as far as a proposal,
Yep.
timeline?
So we have a board meeting at 6:30.
Okay.
Our March board meeting, so that's going to be one of the topics on our agenda, is to talk about that. What can we do? What can we propose? What can we exactly do? So
What do you
I guess
look
it's coming.
These guys have put the time and the treasures that they've done into those fields. What do you guys need to get a field up here? You need a flat piece of cut grass so you can put lines in your goalies up, or what do you need specifically?
Well, that's, I think, is
I mean,
part
in
of
an
the whole.
ideal world, you want what they have
Oh, sure.
up there, but that
Sure.
ain't gonna happen. But if we can get you up there on a cut, flat grass
Yep.
with your.
I don't think there'd be anything else, but just not knowing exactly what the condition is, what the
Right.
fill might need to be. I mean, those are all things. To us, it's going to be more of, what do you think we could support financially year after year? We know our enrollment's going up. We're looking at over 200 players this year. We're looking at, getting more aggressive in fundraising. It's nice now is we have, with this possibility, a real goal to go. We're trying to keep and maintain our own location for varsity games, for games, a real nice place for that. So that gives us a lot of motivation for the entire group in order to fund whatever's necessary. But I have a hard time putting exactly what we can do, at least at this point, on the paper.
Well, I think what we're saying to you is, we have a spot, maybe two, that we could potentially talk to you about.
Yep.
But we need to hear from you, how you're gonna make that work.
Yep.
So I
Yep.
think the ball's in your court.
Yep.
To,
I agree. We'll come back to
have a
you. Like I
plan.
said, we're meeting tonight.
Because I'll move the table this until our next meeting, which would be April 1st, or the first Tuesday.
I just have a quick
Sure.
question. What do some of the other area communities do that maybe have had programs longer? Do they have their own specific fields, or are they using football fields? What's typically happening in the area?
I don't know if there's a typical example, because there is a lot of examples you can go and say where they're using football fields in the
Is that-
community for lacrosse.
Is that
Yep,
typical?
that's typical.
Okay.
We also see very few organizations like ourselves that are kind of independent, that are trying to struggle to get dedicated space or negotiate those types of deals. So it has been more typical that they're using some sort of city property or football fields. A lot of times when we go and visit, that's exactly where we're playing when we play the away games. Yep.
we do have a motion on the floor to table this to our next meeting. We can still have some more discussion, but there's a
Okay.
motion to table. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Is there further discussion?
Now, if we table it, you're saying table any discussion they've got between allowing the Lacrosse Association to play on the existing fields for 2011, because you're anticipating to start your season in, is it April? Tell me the timeline again.
April, yep, it's middle of April is when the first games really
So
come
that's
together.
cutting it fairly close for their association to get something.
Well, quite frankly, and not to interrupt you, Pam, I'm not going to support letting them play on those fields out there. Even if the snow's melted by that time, which I doubt it, those fields are not going to be ready to be played on. I would rather put them up there if we could get a flat surface and cut and have them start their own little, and that could be your field for who knows how long. what kind of agreement we'd come up with after you meet with your board, and then they come back here and discuss it further with us. I think we need to take the booster fields out of play here.
Mike?
I
disagree.
hang on, I'm confused as what the motion is. I thought the motion was to table.
I'm looking to table it to come back
This-
after they meet, and I'm not talking about this proposal, but I'm talking about them specifically.
For a field at
White
White
Camp
Camp.
Park, yes.
For this year or for next year?
This year and the next year and the years to
Okay.
come, if we can come up with a happy agreement.
Okay. Is everybody clear on that?
I just don't think any field up at White Camp would be ready this year. I mean, it's just weeds right now. I'm sure gonna have to grade it and seed it and things like that, so. I just, it's a location that's a possibility for to have a regulation field up there this summer.
But you see, you've identified a spot for
Yep.
them. Now it's their time to do their due diligence to make it
Okay.
happen.
Right, I think that the boosters and the lacrosse association are working on an agreement, so I think we
Yeah,
should let
I-
them do that for this year.
Exactly, Randy.
And-
I
I mean,
think
it's,
Let's hear from them, because right now, a lot of the points have already changed, and if this is what your organization has approved, now it is not approved because it's not the same that their membership approved.
That's fine. What do you guys wanna?
I think we need to discuss this some more. I would like to hear from the boosters and get their feedback. And I missed the last meeting, so I apologize. Do you guys you haven't had home games in the past? Is that what's happened, or what have you done?
So this is the first year we're getting into varsity. So we really have a program now that starts in 3rd grade and goes through 12th grade.
Okay.
And so this is the first year that we're doing varsity. We're using Rivercrest, has been where most of our activity has been. It's both practice and home games. We've gotten a lot of feedback on that, if you try to play, because we've had a number of twisted ankles, a number of different injuries on that field, we haven't had a chance to really get that up to where a varsity team should really play on it.
Okay.
So we've been pursuing all sorts of different avenues, a different location. We've met with the school, we've met a number of occasions here to try to find a location that we can use until we can, improve the fields or get a different location.
So when you say a varsity sport, this is senior, or, kids in high school playing then?
It's kids in high school, but it's not like through the Hudson School District. It's through MBSLA, which is they kind of call it a virtual sport. So we play, White Bear Lake. We play a number of different Minnesota teams that are in this association, and we've gotten to the point where we've said we're going to commit. We have enough team, and they're practicing already, and they're so now the last remaining part is to find a place for them to play.
So is it fair to say, the wear and tear in the field is pretty typical to football game, except around the goal? No?
Well, I would say, there's a number of different points of view on that. So we started out with we were going to do our practices there and games there. And we've taken the practices off the field because that's really where you're going to see most of the wear and tear. You're going to practice on there 3 or 4 nights a week, 2 hours at a time. That's where you're going to see a lot of it. So we took that off the table. We simply went down to an hour game. That's the duration of a game. And we would play those games only on the field. So it's 5 to 7 hours is what our initial proposal was, 5 to 7 hours worth of use during the spring time frame. We've offered up a number of times whatever wear and tear we do put on the field, we'll fully support that restoration, so that when it comes down to the football season at the end of the year, it would not be an issue.
All right, let's hear from the boosters if we could, quickly on where you're at with the agreements and.
Greg, will you explain to the members of the board how much money and whatnot you guys invested?
I guess I don't have exact figures. I know we put probably 50,000 plus easily into those fields. I know, was it 2008, 2009, we put 30,000 in just for irrigation and seeding and grading. That was after probably other grading and lights and whatnot, in previous years. So we're well over 50. Over 50,000. I guess to a certain degree, maybe there is support and some willingness on the boosters to try and help them out. We're not really looking for a long-term partnership, and I don't think, we wouldn't even be in a position to even consider that until after, we see what happens in the first year. We wouldn't even entertain anything longer than that. I guess going to some of the points here, the conditions that we have here is what the club approved. Like Jeff said, the initial request was for practices and games, and then it was just down to games. And then our understanding when we left here, this meeting last month, was that they wouldn't play any games in April. So initially we thought the season was going to be April, kind of mid-April through June. And I guess our understanding was through June, not the beginning of June, but sometime into June. We left the meeting, and it was kind of our understanding that was basically 4 games during the month of May. So that's what we took to the club, and that's what with the decreased usage request, the club was more on board with it. As far as the insurance for the field, I guess we'd probably have to clear that conflict or clear that issue with our treasurer. We're seeing our liability insurance 150% increase, just a huge increase, and they're much more strict on what they cover and what they need for documentation and whatnot. So we're being hit really, really hard, and we need to make sure that we're being covered. I mean, that anybody that would use these fields would be as well. As far as the games not being played during the rain, I guess it was my understanding, again, leaving this meeting last time, that not playing the games during rain wouldn't be a problem. It was my understanding that normally they would play it, but I guess what I took out of the meeting is that if it was raining, they wouldn't play. So that's basically what we took to the club, and that's what they approved. Initially, we kind of had some kind of a usage fee built into it. $2,000 or $1,000 usage fee plus $1,000 damage deposit. We just changed that to $2,000 deposit, and if the fields were put back in their pre-lacrosse condition, we'll just return the whole thing and ask for no compensation in return for this year.
So it sounds like the two groups are coming together or working something out. Well, I think we should just let you do that.
We haven't had really any direct conversations since the last meeting. We took this stuff to the club, had it approved, or to the Booster Club, had it approved, and then I don't know, about a week or so ago, I copied, sent these conditions to Deb and copied the lacrosse group as well, and this is the first we've talked.
Can I interject? Is this not clear to the rest of this board that we're trying to fit a square peg in a round hole here? It doesn't seem to want to work. The conditions are not working for each other. We've identified another space to go. They've worked their time, their club, they've done their due diligence on this field up there. This should be a moot point. We found it, let them take it back, let spring come in, let us look at the field up at Wycamp Park and see if it works for them. To jam this on the booster fields, I don't think is correct.
But if they can come to some terms, what's the big deal? I don't
Well,
understand.
this is moot point now. This is a moot point.
Well, it is to a point, but if they can work out something different where they can work this in, boosters are in the driver's seat. There's no doubt about that. Sure. If they can't come to some agreement on this, then I guess it's not going to happen. But if they can, I don't understand if they can work it out just for 4 games or whatever, I don't understand what the problem with that is. I understand it's not a long-term.
Did we not we've got a spot right there. He's not asking for us to irrigate a field up there for him. Cut the grass, put your stuff up there, line it, and be done.
But I think he,
Play on
Absolutely no way you can
I-
make that field playable
Right,
within 2 months.
we don't know if it's perfectly fine.
Well, I'll call my question and point of order at the table. There is a motion on. I've
There
allowed
is.
the chair allowed to.
The question's been called to a vote. All in favor of the motion to table this until the next meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay. Nay.
Nay, okay. So, basically then, really, I think what we're at is, in my opinion, and I could be wrong, is that Jeff, your group, come to us with a proposal for, White Camp, work with Tom on that, and see if that's a suitable potential spot for you. If it is, let us know what you have in mind. And then I think we'll let you two, the boosters in your group, work out an agreement for this year, if that's what you want to do.
I just see a dual path. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I just see a dual path where we gotta really, work with these guys to, there's basically what I call kind of questions in there to look at and talk about those issues since we haven't had a chance to talk. But and then we have to see and explore exactly
Sure.
what the camp looks like. I've heard multiple feedback that says it's not flat.
I don't think it's gonna work.
So,
I think we should bring this up on next month's agenda for an update of where you guys are at.
and can they move forward? Do we need to approve, if they come to an agreement, do we need to approve the Lacrosse Association using that field? Or is that something that Tom can kind of oversee or move it forward without having us vote on it? Or what do we need to do from the park board perspective in order to facilitate that?
Well, our contracts is with the boosters
Okay.
for that field, so I think that, they can probably determine that. I think we need to be notified, and we need to be copied on the insurance. Deb, is there anything else you think?
Actually, I'm sure we have to be the holder of insurance, the
Yeah.
same as we hold the boosters. And we had kind of discussed a few of these. The other question we had was about the damage deposit, as to why it would go to the boosters versus not to the city. Why wouldn't the city hang on to because it's our fields? I guess that was kind of a question.
And then, I guess, point number one here is, we want the city to enforce it. I mean, we
Right.
basically have an agreement with the cities, saying that those are our fields, and now you're asking us to let somebody else use them. So we want to kind of put that back on
So I
the
didn't know
city
if
to
that
make sure
was-
this is enforced in our,
And I think if we're in that position, I think, the idea of maybe having that deposit go to the city, and then also when the assessment is done in August about getting the deposit back, I think it would probably be good to have the city involved in that review also, to make sure the field is up to the standard.
it should probably be a two-part thing. We should look at the fields prior to, and then
Right.
after, or, at August
Right.
Does
1st.
that make sense?
And I guess,
Baseline, and then
yeah, I guess I'd like to see this amended to have this, if the city's gonna have responsibility on the front end, or, that we're also involved in that piece of it. And then, like, a copy of the insurance for our records.
Any other comments on?
Well, I just have some comments, and I know lacrosse is a growing sport, and I love football. I coached on those fields, and, the damages that can happen, you can have 5th and 6th graders in a rainstorm damaging the field too. But when you think about the use of this is, public use space. The football season's short, and even if there are some damages, there should be enough time to get that reseeded and get it up to speed. And yes, Randy, I agree with you, that maybe isn't the long-term fix, but I don't think we should limit these kids the ability to go out there and have some fun and get some exercise versus playing video games. We should let them use this field. If, again, considering they come to a viable agreement with the boosters. It looks like the framework's here.
Well, Ron, you weren't here at the last meeting. We have a contractual agreement that says it's exclusive to them. This has all come up because they want,
No, I understand that, and I'm saying, if the boosters are willing to do this, why should we be standing in their way? That's my point.
I think if you actually had a conversation with them, they would probably be indifferent. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess there is some willingness and some support, but originally, and I don't remember what our original take to the club was, but originally it was denied. And then we went back, kind of on the recommendation of the park board, took this back to the club, and with actually further reduced usage, and that's when it was approved. I mean, we've got a lot invested in the fields, and we want to protect those fields. And Jim was just at a youth football conference in Green Bay over the weekend, and just kind of threw this out there and said that lacrosse is asking to use our fields, and it wasn't a detailed discussion, but they pretty much just kind of laughed at it.
About 30 different youth organizations there. When I brought that up to them, they said, we'd never allow that.
I'm sorry,
They said they would never allow that.
they wouldn't?
No.
So
Well,
the damages.
The damage that it does. Now, again, as Greg was saying, they were looking at it, I mean, it's a pretty basic question, and they were looking at it as more of full-time usage.
Oh, sure.
That's what I was,
Yeah.
that's what I took out of it. That's why
Right.
the proposal that we're giving you, the 4 days, is what we took when we left here. We could get that by the club, because it is only 4 times. In the rain, I tell you what, we've had football games with them youth in the rain, and it will rip that field up that night, and you
Sure
will not
will.
get them back into that playing condition.
Right.
So to some extent, the willingness is kind of a, kind of prodded willingness. I mean, you asked us to go back.
Let me ask
and-
you a question. If, let's say this was a booster sanction activity, would you guys still feel the same way?
If lacrosse was,
Mm-hmm.
No, because we would be responsible for the fields. We put the money into the fields, we maintain the fields, so, and it is our program.
But they're willing to repair the damages.
Okay, will the damages be repaired, and how will they be repaired? And will they be ready by the time, fall football season comes? We
Well,
don't know.
it's the same issue if you guys have a rain your first week of the season, the fields are torched then.
But we're in control of our
I
own
understand.
situation. We control our own.
I just think
our
this is a
destiny.
little, this is a turf battle you guys are having right now, and
it wouldn't even have to be. They have a contractual agreement. They don't even have to allow this to happen.
Randy, I understand that, but again, we're on the park board, and I think it's so important to give youth activities, healthy activities, and to try to push them up in White Camp Park with a bunch of gopher holes, which they're having problems with that, probably where they're at, it probably doesn't make sense. And I think if they're willing to work with them the first year, then if you've got some data and say, you know what, this just didn't work out, then more power to you guys. But,
Right.
speculating that this or that might happen, I think you're missing the big picture here.
Well, and that's why we come back with that, and we are saying we will allow them to use the fields.
Right, I think they're close to an agreement. Let's let them work that out for a month.
And-
They're gonna, Jeff and his group are gonna check out White Camp with Tom and see if that's a possibility for long-term. So let's just bring this back on our April meeting, see what kind of progress has been made, and we'll go from there.
Can I just make one point?
Jeff, you come up to the microphone, that'd be great.
I just wanted to kind of go through the contract. So we keep talking about exclusive use, and I just want to kind of read through the contract the way that I see it. If you look at the usage under 3, Section B, it just basically says the Hudson Boosters will have priority use of the fields during scheduled games. So that's kind of what, when we read through it, it's not yet an exclusivity for football. It is, they made all these facility upgrades, which is great and fantastic for the community, but it was in order to have priority from August 15th through November 15th of every year. So that's kind of where we saw the opportunity. And it does say in here, the agreement by amendment and approved by the city, it can be amended for future activities, so.
Well, I think we just closed by, I think we made a lot of progress after the last meeting last month. If you guys can work it out, that'd be ideal situation.
We're going to
So,
continue to do that.
okay, thank you. So let's bring this up, Deb, on the next month's meeting. Item 4 is Hudson Softball Association concession agreement for 2011.
Move for approval.
There's a move and a second for approval. Any discussion? Questions? Comments from the Softball Association?
Yes. I'm Tom Heineke, one of the representatives for Hudson Softball, or one of the commissioners. I guess what we're kind of facing is we have no problem with field use price, field prep, lights, any of that kind of stuff. But what we're having a problem with is keeping teams in Hudson. We're probably down 20 teams in the last 7 years. Teams going to River Falls, Richmond, Stillwater, Maplewood, Woodbury. What I would like to say is in the last year, we've done a 180 on the fields up there. I mean, from the day those fields were built, it just, nobody cared. It just seemed like nobody cared. They went downhill. Now we're to the point now where the teams that we have up there are happy with the way the fields are, irrigation in the outfield, irrigation in the infields. I myself played for 37 years. I've been an umpire for going on 40 years. And I hated playing in the dust, and I hated umping in the dust, even worse. But anyway, with the direction we've gone now, fantastic. The thing is, we have to get teams to come back again. We can't raise the price to our teams and have them say, yeah, we'll come back, no problem paying more money. We've got the fields looking better. Now we have to get them back and see those fields and not have to raise the price. So what we're looking at is a few years ago, I can't remember the Parks and Rec director at that time, but we came into a meeting and everything got jacked up on us. They took more of our concessions. We share our coolers with the high school, with the boosters, no problem. I've got no problem with that at all. But right now, we're on a break-even thing with what we have to pay to the city on the percent of our concessions. And what we need to do is get a little bit of a break there to replace our aging coolers that we're sticking all of our money into. And if you guys could come up with something to give us a little bit of break on what we're paying the city for concessions, it would certainly help. We,
Deb, what is the concession amount roughly a year?
Sorry, I didn't put that down.
Revenue
Oh, from them?
from them, yeah.
Oh, gosh, it's right here.
Oh, I couldn't find that.
For concessions,
It's lakefront.
14,
Oh,
1,400.
there it is, okay.
Somewhere right on there, 2,000, somewhere around there.
and I know that that's probably going down because we're losing teams, and the more teams we lose, the less we're gonna be able to give to the city.
Why are you losing teams, Tom?
Well, because the fields got in such bad shape that the fields were better in the other cities. The price is less to play in the other cities. And now I believe that we can probably get those teams back if we don't have to raise our prices, and if we can say, okay, we've got this to offer you, we're not going to raise our prices, which I'm sure other cities have to raise their prices just to keep up with the way things are going. But right now, what I'm saying is we don't want to have to raise our prices to our teams to make up for our lack of concessions that we end up having to pay the city every year, because we've got coolers that we have to, I mean, basically these coolers are older than I am, and every year we're sticking $1,000 in the coolers up there.
So if we went from 10 to 8%, would that help, something like that?
Anything would help. What really took a dig here was a few years ago is when, I think before it was 10% off or 8% off of beer sales alone.
Right.
And then it went to 10% straight across the board, not after our expenses, not anything. It was just right off the top. And the man that was telling us this, I said, don't you realize that if we don't do concessions, that's this much that you're not going to get? I don't care, don't do them.
Are you looking to lower your rates to bring teams back?
Well, we could probably do that, you know, maybe for a couple of years to get them back in. But basically, like I said, we're nonprofit, and you know, it's just making things go from here to the next year.
What I hear you saying is the coolers are old and you need to replace those. And
Yes.
You want to break on the concession rate to help pay for the coolers.
Yes.
Okay.
And that way, we don't have to raise our prices to the teams to keep them there.
Well, that's why you lost a lot from what I've gathered from people. The rates continue to go up and everybody left because it's cheaper around the surrounding areas.
Right. And also the fields were in bad shape. I
Played
mean,
on them, yeah.
it was to the point where the city would drag the fields and drag the powder back into the batter's boxes. Well, then everybody would get back into the batter's boxes and dig the 4 inches of powder back out, and people just didn't want to play in that. There was other options that they could go play in other cities. That problem is now taken care of. I mean, the fields are, you know, probably 95% of what they should be now. Things are good.
Right.
And the teams that are there comment on that. I mean, I heard about it all last year, that, boy, this is nice playing in this versus what we were playing in. So the players that are still up there are now basically pretty happy with the fields that they're playing on. They can dive in the outfield and catch fly balls without losing a half an inch of skin every time, but the fields are good. What I'm saying is, if we could get some kind of a break on concessions, I'm thinking that the money that we pay for field usage, field prep, lights and things like that, is basically to keep the fields viable and to keep you guys on an even keel up there. And that the concessions is a little extra for you to take care of your other parks.
Well, actually, the concessions go into, you know, just a separate fund. That's where we keep track of it. And we actually borrowed money from a different fund last year to pay for, you know, the dugouts and the improvements to the dugouts, and then we're doing a field improvement. And so we've kind of had to borrow from one, and when we get enough, then we have to put it back in. Not saying they can't agree to take the donations and put it towards that, but that's what they're used for, is just the field improvements. So that's where that money does go to, so.
Okay.
But there has been, you know, from 2009 to 2010, there's like, I'd say there's, I believe it's, what does it come out to, like 1.2% difference in concessions, you know, that we've collected less, so it's kind of.
So realistically, 2% off of 10 would probably come out flat.
Well, Tom's asking to see if we'll give him a break in the rent for this year. Is there a motion to consider?
Do you know roughly what the new coolers would cost you guys, or?
I guess we haven't really gone into that part because we never figured it was really gonna happen, that we were gonna have the money to put into them. I know last year, I think we spent over $1,000 putting new compressors in those old coolers and stuff, and I know when fall ball arrived, one of them was already shot again anyway. And like I said, we share the coolers with the boosters and whoever else wants to use them. So it's not just us. I mean, we're willing to share with what we have, so.
Well, Mr. Chairman, point of order, I do have a motion on the floor, but I'll amend it to say 8% on the approval of this agreement if the seconder agrees.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Any further discussion?
It's fine.
Hearing none, all in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thanks, Tom.
Thank you very much.
Tom? You know, maybe get some new coolers.
Next item on the agenda is item 5, Riverwalk Tollgate Shelter Project and Grant Extension. The city asked the DNR to extend the $100,000 grant for one more year, and they've agreed to do that.
Thanks, buddy.
Good.
What I'd like to do is form a subcommittee to work with Tom to go over the plan from last, that's kind of in place right now, to modify it, look at the bid documents, take out what needs to be taken out, add what needs to be added, and come back next month with something that we can look at. Is there anybody that would like to work with Tom on a subcommittee?
I will.
Hey, Michael? Ronnie, you're shaking yes?
I think we got 2 on it. They don't need any more chiefs.
I'll help as well. If we can set a time, so allow the 4 of us, we'll do that. Okay, any further questions or discussion on that? Okay.
Actually, discussion on that. The main obstacle we ran into was the issue of running the water and sewer out there, wasn't it?
Yeah, and that's not gonna be a part of this. This will be a well, or not a well, but what do you call it, holding tank. Thank you very much. So.
Okay. Tom, would we anticipate any problems with being able to service the holding tank, getting it pumped out there?
That would be part of the decision, I guess, you would have to.
I'm
Good
just
cost.
asking for your opinion. Based on what
Currently,
we're
the
doing
bridge
now.
is, we've got the bridge certified now that it should hold, garbage trucks and things like that, so
Okay.
I guess it's very possible.
Okay.
This is all gonna come down to cost, quite simply, frankly.
know.
There is no money. I know, you say there is, there's half of it, half of something. And I'm just saying, take heed as a park board, as the council is making cuts.
I understand.
Right, well, we're going to, we have a committee formed to, you were stepped outside of Michael, Pam, Tom, and I, to look at the documents and see where we're at, and make a recommendation to the board next month.
So would we be looking at, after this was brought up, the tollgate shelter, so then prior to this, we were working on Burton Field. So I mean, we're gonna, during those conversations or by next month, are we gonna have some kind of decision made so we can decide if we're gonna move forward with Burton Field project also, or everything's kind of right on hold here. We were kind of moving forward with, Burton Field a little bit. Now this is, we just have to make some decisions.
Well, yeah, right, Tom, in the meetings that we've had, it depends on what's gonna happen with the bonding process for
Yep,
Burton.
and that's kind of been what we've waited for. I think there are some proposals here. I don't think they've really been voted on by the council yet.
Right, and that's why we need to, I think we still need to move forward and get things ready.
Yep.
To
Okay.
at least look at, vote on, recommend, kind of go from there.
Absolutely.
Anybody else at this time on tollgate shelter? Okay, item 6, project updates. Tom?
We just been, like I said, trying to work with the lacrosse people, so we got, some locations for that group. We've been trying to work with the capital projects, and like I said, until we make some decisions on which direction we're going, that's kind of where we're at so far. So not a lot of activity right at the moment.
Any more graffiti going on, or?
I haven't seen any. We did get partial cleaning of the White Camp rock cleaned up, but I put a call into Revard Stone and did not hear back. So I don't know if they're going to suggest pressure washing or sandblasting or something. But I did get an email from the DNR rep for the mooring steps. She needed a little more information. She actually is changing positions, and she's working with the replacement to work with us. So we're gonna be sending her some photos, and I got a overhead map of the dike with some areas designated as to where the stairs should go, so I'll be getting that off to her this maybe tomorrow or the next day. So hopefully we can keep moving with,
Good.
with that project.
Tom, a thought I had is obviously with the river at the stage it's at and all the snow and melt that's being forecasted, do we need to look at sandbags and help like that? What do you have that in mind, or have you been talking about that?
We have had a meeting, Denny Darnold set up the meeting, and basically all the information that we've had from previous years, he shared that. We have some historic documentation from different elevations from Buckeye Garage, First Street, the seawall down in Lakefront Park, the bridge, the dam over Lake Malu, things like that. So we're working with that. We did take a sandbag inventory, so we have on hand. Eric Christensen was kind of nominated that he's going to take over the flooding directorship. Is that how you say that? So he's going to be working with that. We've met, I've contacted some companies over in Minneapolis to get sandbags if we need them. I think the council really should decide if the city is responsible for purchasing and then giving them out to residents, or if they're gonna sell them to the residents, or, what's the responsibility of the city? So we are making plans. We do have some sandbags. We have sand available. Just depends on how far the city wants to go with that.
Okay, well,
We need a little direction from the council.
will you update us on that next month in case we need the park board to get involved somehow?
And we do have a
I mean,
plan
it
to
might be more of a
evacuate.
public works issue, but I think obviously it's gonna affect
Yeah,
lakefront
absolutely.
and quite a bit.
Absolutely. I think every department has a little bit of work that they do. We usually evacuate Buckeye Garage, and we're prepared to do that. We have to do things to the bathhouse, we're prepared to do that. So, and then have the signage and things, so. We've been through it before, we just, and we have met, and it's certainly on our radar, that's for sure.
Any questions for Tom, anything else? Okay, then is there any other business for information purposes only for upcoming agendas? Hearing none, is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll move to adjourn.
So moved.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Thank you very much.